Hello, I'm Olivia from Urban, and today I'm here with Khoo, Managing Director at ICD Property. Matt, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Olivia.
So I thought what we'd have a chat about is the cost of building sustainably. So I thought who better to discuss this with than someone with experience in both finance and property development. So would you mind telling our audience a little bit about how you got started in both of those fields?
I've always had a passion for property. I think it's because of the tangibility. You're able to want to do something and see it created and then see how it impacts everything following that. Community, the environment, the people that get to live in the properties that you develop. So I started off in property and in consulting property developers and investors, and felt like I was always lacking in this area of where you have a lot of influence on the feasibility of the properties, which is finance. So I actually went back to study and had some work experience within the property finance and investment space, working for a big bank.
Yeah.
And that I found really gave me a good structure to make strategic decisions, both on the return and a risk profiling.
Right, because there is a lot of risk in property development.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And it's all about the balance of risk return and knowing what your appetite is and knowing whether what you're delivering sits within that.
Right, yeah. And so ICD Property has an extensive portfolio of landmark residential developments. How do you believe the design of each home enhances the life of residents from a sustainability perspective?
It's very kind of you to say. I'm probably going to stretch the boundaries of the definition of sustainability. Right. I really see sustainability more holistically, in that you can always look at it as a triangle of sustainability. I think there's the one that most people commonly know is environmental sustainability and how what we develop has an impact on the environment. But I also like to look at the investment or livability sustainability. So how does our project impact the occupants and those who own the properties themselves? Does it have longevity for them as an investment? And the third one, I think, is your sort of social community sustainability. What is our impact on the local community and the society more broadly? And really, sustainability, I think, is factoring all three of those and finding the appropriate balance while still making it a feasible project for us.
Absolutely.
One example, Sydney project, the City Tassels Club. From an environmental side of things, there are 3 heritage sites of the 4 in the middle of Sydney CBD. And as part of our offering, we're going to be retaining a substantial amount of heritage there. That means reduced building materials. It means also the drawing again to the social community side of things, retainment of real heritage and culture. And then from the occupant side of things, we are looking at a mixed-use development. So there's the club, there's hotel above it, and residential. Drawing this element of sustainability is like, what is the demand going to be for each of those occupants? How do we facilitate that? But how do we also maximize it, make it most efficiently utilized? Again, coming back to the environment, like we want to build stuff that's going to be utilized.
So you mentioned a lot of reasons for buyers in terms of sustainability of developments, but what incentives do you think are there for developers to create environmentally conscious buildings and follow through with those heritage retrofits?
I can't speak for all developers, but definitely in terms of our rationale for delivering sustainable design, it comes down to brand sustainability for us. We've never gone into a development thinking this is going to be our first or our last. And with the conscious awareness of our buyers these days, not just the millennials but everyone, becoming more aware of what the impact is on a development can have on the environment, on the society, it becomes a conscious decision for them about who they choose to buy with. So for us, like, one, we're passionate about it because our people care about it and they want to see it developed in the projects. But also it makes sense for us from delivering a project, and yes, you might make a little less return on this, but in the long run, it's about sustainable brand.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great ethos to have as well. So aside from cost, what other factors do you think are sort of roadblocks for developers to make these kinds of sustainable developments?
This is going to sound probably funny. I think it's actually it's the demand itself.
Really?
So I feel that the demand for environmental sustainable design probably lags where it needs to be looking forward. I wouldn't probably be saying this in some of the Scandinavian countries where their awareness of what is available is so much more robust, and they're willing to pay for it as well. So I think, developers here in Australia, if we're developing these environmental sustainable buildings, but people aren't seeing value in it and paying for it, then it's a cost that's going missing, so that's why you find that, like, a lot of developers will say, well, I'm only going to do the bare minimum. I'm going to do what I know that the purchasers want and will see. But if that awareness piece is shifted and people go, yeah, I want to see green car share, that's the standard, or that's going to be important for the next 3-4 years. I want to see embedded network with feeding into the grid as well. I want to see us move away from gas and only see induction cooking. Then more developers will be building that.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned earlier that the electric car sharing service that you have integrated within EQ Tower was done retrospectively. Was that for that reason? Because you weren't aware that people wanted that?
For us as developers, and this goes again back to the brand, a developer is only really obligated from start to finish. That has a misalignment, we feel, with us wanting to create an end-to-end product and a sustainable investment for our purchasers. So we've made a conscious decision to invest in our projects, and we own apartments in our projects. We have our staff and involved in owners' corps, so that we can go and look, where are we missing elements that will create a better product for our purchasers in the long run. And EQ is a prime example of that. We take a seat on the owners' corp. Purchasers love that. They love to see the developer involved. We've been able to implement additional security for the owners. And another thing that came to us after completing it was the electric car sharing. So we're like, okay, well, we own a number of the car spots still. We have given those up for the use of the electric car share service that we've got, OmniGo.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so and it's great, and to see the users actually utilise it, and it gives us that perspective of, again, demand. Like, now they're aware of it, now that they're utilising it, we'll be looking to implement those in all of our future developments.
Great. Are there some other initiatives that you're thinking of rolling out in future projects similar to that?
I think we always look at it quite organically. We want to implement things that people are going to use. So it's probably not so specifically one or two things, but we will look at, okay, well, what are the services people use? They use property management. How can we innovate that? How can we make it better? Maybe environmentally, but a lot of it is around the social community and the investors' sustainability. Can we offer to furnish product? Can we offer a cheaper cleaning or maintenance service? All those things are areas which we can impact beyond being just a developer.
Yeah. That's really interesting. How do you find the perfect balance between investing in quality, selling homes at an affordable cost, and also maintaining the profitability of your business?
Well, there's no formula, specific formula. I think a lot of it does come down to your values and how you sort of view the company in the long run. Fortunately, we've got a very holistic thinking board and founders who have been running their organisations for 30, 40 years. Into top 1,000 companies. So they know it's not a short game, it's a long game. And from that perspective, they said, look, you do need to make your projects return a risk-adjusted return, but you don't need to make an absurd return where you compromise quality to your purchases, where you compromise the investment and value to your purchases. That comes number one. And that's a really simple but good sort of basis for us to go and approach projects where we will take a return that is necessary for the risks that we're taking on, but where we will focus is on the customer service, the delivery of a product that's quality and delivering value for our investors. Using EQ as an example, we went and put a higher reflective facade on there. What that meant was lower running costs for our purchasers, which would impact every purchaser. It also then doubled up as a better looking facade.
Right.
So for us, in terms of our passion and going, we built that project, and the social community aspect of it, and also for the investors, because if it looks better and stands the test of time, then they will get a better return as well.
That's a great example.
I hope it is.
I think that definitely caters to all those three that I asked you. It was a difficult question. How do you communicate to buyers the value of paying a bit more for a more sustainable development? I know you touched on that earlier, but what's your approach?
I feel that the developers that are successful in the long run haven't got there just overnight. They've built up track record, they've done what they say they'll do, and it resonates with the brand that they're creating. And so I think there's that level of authenticity, and we just have to keep producing good projects, maintain that track record, keeping good customer service, and I think understanding and asking our purchasers, what have you liked and what haven't you liked? And not just focusing on the good, look at the bad and go, well, okay, how can we improve? And I think if we keep doing that, we'll get word of mouth, we'll get repeat business, and hopefully then people will go, well, there is value that I'm willing to pay for in that brand and in that product.
Absolutely. Have you noticed a buyer interest in sustainably built homes in recent years?
Most definitely. There's a consciousness about it, and it's highlighted by the success of groups like Nightingale.
Right.
And we like to often benchmark and look at the groups that are really pushing the boundaries, because it is very hard to pioneer and kind of, and if you don't get it right, then buyers don't pay for the product. But if it's already happened once or twice, and then it gives us the ability to go, yep, that is a smart business decision, and we can put that in there.
Right. Yep. Does it become a lot harder when you're building more and more apartments, so the taller skyscrapers?
Interesting, because there's two aspects of it. There's how many people are willing to demand that.
Right.
And when you're building 500-600 apartments, and you've got to make that decision once, you've got to factor that in. Using EQ Tower as an example again, is that we were faced with the dilemma of, do we build a base stock for our purchases and then have upgrades? And then when we did the numbers and went, we can upgrade every purchaser and then use the economies of scale of buying those melee timber floors for all the living spaces, we can offer that at the same price as a product that requires upgrades. So we were able to say to our purchasers, here's an apartment with what you typically call an upgrade pack, and we're going to offer it to you at a normal price. So I think probably didn't answer your question, sitting on the fence a little bit, but we can then assess environmentally sustainable design and initiatives and go, well, if we implement it, how much is it going to cost on a per apartment basis? Will that increase in cost for our purchasers prohibit them from buying? In a lot of cases, if it's an efficiently used, environmentally sustainable amenity, then the answer would be yes, we can put it in. So
yeah. Great. So how does living sustainably extend beyond going green and, I guess, installing solar panels and recycling, that kind of thing?
Yep. Very good question. I think, and I'm going to probably draw back to this idea of holistic sustainability. And if we are creating a product which remains relevant for our occupants and the foreseeable future, it means it's going to have the necessary amenity for them. They can walk or take the lift downstairs to the gym or to the deli downstairs. They can get pretty much all their daily functions within the building or in a very close proximity of the building. They can take their electric chair cars on the weekend, so that means they don't have to buy another car, and that's adding to the greenhouse gases. They can read a book in the outdoor library, which has trees around it, which keep the heat down. So it's not any particular sustainable feature, I guess. There's pockets of things that you can do that improve the livability for the occupants as a whole. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess as a whole, a sustainable investment itself.
Yeah, I think that's like we really want to push the boundaries, but push them in the sense that they're getting utilised. So if we have building management systems which can turn off lights in hallways that aren't being utilised, if that same system can look at how to efficiently manage our lifts or like the watering for the gardens, and having a herb and vegetable garden which is available for all the occupants to utilise. All the sort of things like it really comes down to what is the cost and how much value are the occupants getting out of it. And that's what really interests us, because to create something that creates value for your users it's a really satisfying feeling.
I bet. What do you think the national benchmark should be for future buildings in Australia?
Wow.
Benchmark of sustainability, I think.
Yeah, I think this is probably thinking a fair few years ahead, but it'd be amazing if our buildings are not the cause for environmental hardship. I think what's made us all quite aware of the potential causes of climate change have been the recent bushfires. I think it really has hurt deeply our whole community, and everyone sort of band around the people who are impacted. Where I think development can really play its part, or developers, is to create buildings and communities which are actually regenerative, improving the environment and the ecosystems that we live in. So, like if you're doing a large land estate, being able to put solar or wind or sources of energy which actually feed back to the grid minimising our uses of gas. On large buildings, it's around potentially mixed-use amenities. You know, this amazing like ecosystem of retail, community, hotel, residential, and office.
Yeah.
And you know, like office is used from 9 to 5, and then you've got the hotel, you know, which is 24/7. You've got resi, which is after hours.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, the usage of the building during those various times, you can start to see where there's, you know, advantages on the use of amenities, on the use of energy. And I think, you know, if we design it smartly, we can get to that point eventually, once, you know, cost is no longer prohibitive.
Do you think people really value all those shared amenities like garden areas, the things that apartments traditionally didn't have necessarily?
Most definitely. A lot of developments these days are being sold as, I'm going to use the marketing spiel, you know, it's a hotel-like amenity.
Right, absolutely.
And
resort style.
resort amenities. And I think, you know, rather than saying that and delivering something else, we thought, well, if we have hotels in our developments, why don't we look at a way in which we will work to share those amenities? So it's not just a pool, it's not just a gym, it's actually a serviced pool and gym serviced by the hotel. So it is resort, it's hotel-like amenity.
It's no longer a hotel like it is.
It is the hotel's amenity. Yeah, that's right. And then you can look at room service, you can look at, like, there's ways in which you can actually enhance the way residents are living beyond what we have available to us now. And that's what's really exciting.
Cool. And so I think just to finish off the interview, what would you like to see Australia's housing look like in the next 10 to 20 years' time?
I think, just drawing back on what I mentioned before, it'd be really great to see that triangle of sustainability shift up a notch. The environmental side of things, you know, start to see regenerative development. From a investor livability side of things, affordability, you know, is often a big topic in the news. Like, how can we bring that down and make property more affordable for all Australians?
Great, well, sounds good. And thank you so much for your time today and sharing all your insight. I'm really excited to see the future of ICD Property's developments.
Thanks, Olivia. No, it's a topic I'm really passionate about. I love talking about, so my pleasure.
Oh, great. Well, if you'd like to see more interviews with industry experts, then make sure to subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you again soon.